Let's be real. Have you ever stared at a word like through or night and just thought to yourself, what is going on here? Why is English spelling so bonkers? Well, what if I told you it's not as random as it looks? Turns out there's a hidden system, a kind of secret code underneath all that chaos. And in this explainer, we're going to crack it together.
I mean, it's the question we've all asked, right? Probably while trying to win a spelling bee or just typing an email. We learn in school that A is for apple, that letters make certain sounds. But then the language seems to break its own rules over and over again. So what's the real story?
Okay, so let's look at the evidence. You've got a word like bomb, 4 letters, but we only say 3 sounds, because that last B is just there for decoration, I guess. Or look at through. It uses 7 letters to make just 3 little sounds. And it even goes the other way. The word fix has 3 letters, but if you listen closely, you're actually making 4 sounds. F, I, x. So this mismatch, it's not a mistake. It's our very first clue. So let's stop thinking of English as weird or broken. Let's start thinking of it like a code that's just waiting to be deciphered. And you and I, we're the detectives. We're going to follow the clues and solve this thing. Our first and maybe most important clue is all about sound. Because here's the secret. To understand why words are spelled the way they are, we first have to understand the science of how we say them. To do this, we need the right tools. We're going to step into the world of linguistics. Now, that sounds fancy, but all it is the science of language. It treats language not as a bunch of boring grammar rules, but as this amazing, living system that we can actually take apart and understand. And within linguistics, we're going to zoom in on one specific field, phonology. This is where it gets really interesting because phonology doesn't care about the alphabet. It completely ignores written letters and focuses only on the actual sounds we make with our mouths when we talk. And the basic building block here is something called a phoneme. It's just the smallest possible unit of sound. You know, like the phone and telephone, it's all about sound. So the M sound in map is one phoneme. The P sound is another. These are like the true atoms of spoken language.
We all know this number, 26. It's the number of letters in the good old English alphabet. A, B, C, you know the drill. We learned this as kids. Simple enough, right? But here's where the plot thickens.
In spoken English, we actually use around 40 distinct sounds, 40 phonemes. And there it is. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. We have only 26 letters trying to do the job of representing 40 different sounds. That single mismatch is the #1 reason English spelling feels so chaotic.
So, how on earth do we make it work? Well, we get creative. We smash letters together, like S and H to make the sh sound. We create vowel teams like E and A in tea, or O and I in oil, to make new sounds. And then some letters are just overachievers, like the letter X, which often stands for 2 sounds at once, K and S.
And you can see it right here. A simple word like map, it's a perfect match. 3 letters, 3 phonemes. M, A, P. But then you look at a word like girl. We write it with 4 letters, but we only say 3 sounds. G, L. That's the big insight. To crack the code, you have to stop counting letters and start hearing sound.
Okay, so clue #1 is to listen for the sounds. Our second clue is all about how those sounds get bundled together into neat little packages.
This quote absolutely nails it. Those gigantic, intimidating words, they're not so scary when you realize they're just a bunch of smaller, simpler parts all strung together. And those parts, of course, are syllables.
Let's take this absolute monster of a word. It looks completely unreadable, right? But watch what happens when we chop it up by syllable. It just becomes establishmentarianism. See? It's not a monster. It's just 11 bite-sized pieces. Totally manageable. And what's even cooler is that even these little chunks follow patterns. In that giant word, you really only saw 2 types of syllables. You had closed syllables like an, dis, and tab, which end with a consonant sound. And you had open syllables like t, which end with a vowel sound. Just knowing if a syllable is open or closed is a massive clue for how to pronounce it. It's another layer of the code. So we've looked at sounds and syllables. For a third and final clue, we need to put on our historian hats and investigate a word's family tree, what the experts call its etymology. You see, English didn't just appear out of nowhere. It started as a Germanic language brought to Britain by Anglo-Saxon tribes. But then, in 1066, a massive historical event happened, the Norman Conquest. William the Conqueror invaded from France, and suddenly, French became the language of power, of the government, and of the upper class.
And you can still see this history on your dinner plate today. The Anglo-Saxon farmers out in the fields used their Germanic words for the animals, cow, pig. But the French-speaking nobles, sitting at the fancy dinner table, used their words for the meat on the plate, buff, which became beef, and pork, which became pork. That history is literally baked into our vocabulary.
And oh, we didn't stop with French. English is a champion borrower, a language kleptomaniac, really. We snatched salsa from Spanish, pizza from Italian, hamburger from German. And the key thing to remember is, when we borrow a word, we often borrow a piece of its original spelling. That's why we have so many different ways to write the exact same sounds.
And here's one more historical shortcut for you. Root words, especially from Latin. If you just know that the root dict comes from Latin and means to say, then all of a sudden words like predict, dictation, and interdiction stop being random. You can see they're all part of the same family, connected by meaning and often by spelling.
So, we've gathered our clues, we have sounds, we have syllables, and we have history. Now let's put it all together and finally solve the mystery of English spelling.
Here they are, the 3 master keys to the code. It's not one simple rule, it's a 3-part strategy. First, learn to count the sounds, the phonemes, not the letters. Second, break big words down into their smaller, manageable syllable chunks. And third, get curious about a word's history. English spelling isn't random. It's a complex, layered system full of patterns from sound, structure, and history.
So the next time you see a word that looks just bizarrely spelled, don't get frustrated. Get curious. Try to decode it. Look for the sounds. Break it into syllables. Think about where it might have come from. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know the code, what illogical word out there suddenly makes perfect sense to you?